Ready.
So at the beginning of the Sri Brihad Bhagavatamritam by Srila Sanatana Goswami, where you see that Narad, and in the assembly of these sages and Brahmins, then one prominent Brahmin, he makes arrangements for worshipping the Lord. He creates an altar with his own hand and offers many, valuable items to the Lord, satisfies the Lord, then offers the bhog and the prasad. He feeds everybody, all the householders, sannyasis, brahmacharis, then all the people, and even all the outcasts, and even the animals, jackals, birds, and insects. So Narad is very impressed, and he says, you have received Lord Krishna's greatest favour, and because you're using all your assets to establish pure religion in the form of devotional service to the Lord. But the Brahmin objects, "Oh, Master, Narad, what signs of Krishna's mercy have you seen in me? I'm a very wretched person. What charity do I have? What opulence do I have to give? And how have I ever reciprocated with the Lord in devotional service? But in the south country there lives a king, and in his kingdom there are many temples of God and the demigods, and he really is the true recipient of the Lord's mercy. And many pilgrims and mendicants come to his kingdom, and they wander there very freely, and all sustained by prasad, which is provided liberally there. And there's always festival going on in that country. Many yajnas and many offerings and sacrifices. And even the devotees, many saintly devotees of Lord Vishnu, they come there, and even sometimes they settle down there to reside there. And also the king, because of the presence of this pious and holy king, his kingdom is completely free from sorrow and fear and any social unrest. And the crops are very abundant, and the rain falls just comfortably for the people. And there's an abundance of all fruits and vegetables and all good things. And the king's very prideless, despite his royal opulence. And he worships Lord Krishna, mentioned in the verse Achyuta. And he's very dear to all the people. So this king is really the recipient of the Lord's mercy. He organizes Sankirtan also in his country and makes all arrangements for that. And he ensures that his entire family and his extended family, they all take part in this Sankirtan. He has so many good qualities, I can't even describe them. So then Narad, Sri Parikshit is telling, Narad then goes to this country of this king to see this king, and he was amazed to see the beauty and opulence of that land. And he praised the king. Oh, you are really the recipient of the Lord's mercy. Praising the king's greatness and embracing the king again and again. But the king worshipped Narad and felt very embarrassed hearing his own praise. And he decried himself. He said, I'm just a human being with a short lifespan, just a little opulence, and very little to give others. I am constantly attacked by fear, and I'm ruled by the threefold miseries of life. Which are the threefold miseries?
Are we back at the Daivika?
Yes. Adhyatmic, Adhibautic, and Adhidaivic. he's saying, of course, I may receive Lord Krishna's mercy in the future, but why do you wrongly consider me an object of his compassion and mercy? Actually, the demigods, they're really the real objects of the Supreme Lord Vishnu's mercy. Their bodies are effulgent and they're always worshipable by human beings. And they're very fixed in goodness, always happy, free from distress. And they act and travel very freely. And they're constantly, their food is the nectar of immortality. They don't suffer old age and disease and death only after a long, long time. And they partake of this godly nectar, holy Amrit, not because of necessity, like on earth, the necessity of having to eat and drink, but at their own sweet will. And they live in heaven, which is human beings can only attain as a result of a lot of pious activity. And of course the Amrit, the Soma Rasa, which they drink, makes them immortal, like this. And among them all, the leader is Indra, the king of all the demigods, Purandra Indra. And not only that, he has full power to reward or punish. Lord Indra is one of the lords of karma, of human beings, and he provides rain to the world. And he rules the planetary systems for 71 celestial ages. This is much, far, far longer than any human being could ever achieve. His elephant is Airavata, and his horse, Uchaishrava, mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. The elephant's got 6 tusks when they show it in the pictures, yeah. And Uchaishrava, born of the nectar of immortality. He also is in possession of the Sarabi cow, whose milk fulfills any desire, and his beautiful residence in the garden, the Nandana gardens of heaven, and that's so many wonderful trees, like the Parijat tree, that even Krishna went to get the flower from that tree, right, for his queen, for Rukmini. And then we know that the other queen, she wanted that as well. Yeah, she couldn't tolerate, and so Krishna had to take the whole tree. He stole the whole tree from Indra's garden, and Indra came out with his army to fight with Krishna about this. So in this way, he's praising Indra so much. And his elder brother is Vamanadev, Lord Vamanadev, right? So he's sometimes, another name for Vamanadev is Upendra, who's his older brother, Upendra, Upa-Indra, the older brother of Indra. So, and then, therefore, Lord Vamanadev is coming to visit him sometimes, and is always protecting him from danger. So, such a great personality is Indra. So then, Narad, he goes from earth to heaven. So, chapter 2 of the book, Brihad Bhagavatam, is called Divya, in heaven. Sri Parikshit said, after praising the great king, Narad made his way to heaven. There in the assembly hall, he saw Lord Vishnu in all his brilliance, surrounded by hosts of demigods. He was decorated with sandalwood pulp, divine ornaments and garments, and a garland made of varied flowers from desire trees. This is Lord Vishnu, not Indra. He saw Indra in the assembly hall of Indra. So describing Lord Vishnu seated on Garuda and being worshipped, and Brihaspati was there, Mother Aditi, was pampering him, and he was talking to them very affectionately. And all these many types of beings, Siddhas, Vidyadharas, Gandharvas, Apsaras, they're all praising and praying to the Lord, singing, dancing, playing music. And so the Lord there, Vishnu, was assuring Indra that he need not be afraid of the Daityas. In the commentary here, Sanatana Goswami is explaining in more detail about these different types of offerings that were being made to the Lord. Padya, Arghya, elaborate worship with 64 items.
Maharaj, this Brihata Bhattamrita, what is the main teaching that Sanatana Goswami is trying to convey with this?
It's the quest of the soul's quest for the ultimate reality of eternal service to the Lord, stage by stage, through the process of acceptance and elimination, or selection and elimination, on the journey of Gopa Kumar. Yeah, so Indra was sitting on the throne next to the Lord, shedding from his 1,000 eyes many tears. Then Lord Vishnu left and went to his own place, residence, and then following some part of the way, that Indra returned to the assembly hall, and then Narad greeted him and began to praise him. You've surely received the Supreme Lord's mercy. Because demigods like Surya, Chandra and Yama, what to speak of the other rulers of the planets, all obey your orders. Sages like me are your subjects, and the Vedas praise you as the Lord of the universe, for you bestow the fruits of religion and irreligion. How wonderful that Lord Narayan has become your younger brother, born of the same womb. He always treats you with respect. So Narad was praising Indra like this, dancing, playing his veena. But Indra said, in a humble voice, "My dear Narad, expert in the arts of the Gandharvas, why are you making fun of me? Are you unfamiliar with what ruling heaven means? Don't you know how many times we demigods have had to flee heaven in fear of the Daityas? One of them, Bali, even once took over as Indra. He appointed demons to all the posts like sun god and moon god, and took for himself my shares of sacrifice." We residents of heaven are tainted with faults like rivalry and jealousy. For such acts as killing Brahmins, we get entangled in the reactions of sin, and we live in constant fear of losing our posts. So what happiness do we truly enjoy? So happiness is a relative thing. From the point of view of human perception, generally, the demigods are very high and very exalted and enjoying an almost immortal life, paradisical life. But in the demigod society, the same things similar to what's going on in human society are also going on. Jealousy, envy, backbiting, so many things. And they're also very worried about being deposed from their posts, hanging on to their, like Boris Johnson, trying to hang on to his post, not be deposed. Attachment, a lot of attachment also. You must also know that my brother, Lord Upendra, intentionally disregarded me by taking from heaven the Sudama hall and the Parijat flower and bringing them to the earth. He ruined the worship the cowards had been offering me for many years. But you know the Leela, Govardhan Leela, Krishna stopping the sacrifice of Indra. And he burned down my favourite forest, the Khandava. This was because Agni, the fire god Agni, had a stomachache because so much ghee has been given to him in the fire, sacrificial fire. So he had a stomach upset. That's the story in the Mahabharata with Krishna and Arjuna. And Arjuna being the son of Indra, of course. So they destroyed Indra's favourite forest, the Khandava forest. And then Vitrasura, of course, who was a devotee, though again born in a Daitya family, was a great devotee. And the Lord could have settled the thing of Vitrasura, got rid of him, but he sent, Indra is telling, he indifferently sent me on his behalf. And with no regard for me, he destroyed my capital, Amaravati, and built a new residence above all others for himself. He accepts our worship on the strength of our parents' devotion and at the insistence of my priest. And then, after taking our offerings, he at once disappears, returning to his own abode. Then he suddenly comes back. I tell him, we're very much obliged to you for accepting our offerings of Arghya. But he cunningly replies, whenever I am not here to accept your offerings, you may worship Brahma or Shiva instead. Indeed, both of them are non-different from me. According to scriptural statements, the three deities, Rudra, Vishnu and Brahma, are embodiments of the same Supreme Being. Have you forgotten? So Indra is saying that the Lord is, in a way, deceiving him. He doesn't really kind of want his association. So he's saying, oh, you can worship Shiva or Brahma. It's the same as worshipping me. It's kind of... And we cannot be certain where he lives. His abode is unapproachable, difficult for even sages to attain. Sometimes he's in Vaikuntha, sometimes on Dhruva's planet, and sometimes within the ocean of milk. And now he's in Dwarka, but even about this, there's no certainty. Sometimes he goes from there to the house of the Pandavas, and sometimes to Mathura. In Mathura, he's sometimes in the city, and sometimes wandering in Gokul from forest to forest. So it's very difficult for us to see him, what to speak of obtaining his mercy. But, O best son of Brahma, you should know that your own father is the true recipient of the favour of Lord Hari. He is directly the son of Lord Vishnu, the husband of Lakshmi. Yeah, Lord Brahma is Atmabhu. He has no parents as such. He's born directly from Lord Vishnu. And so the four sages, the Chatushan, Shanak, Sanandana, Sanatan and Sanat Kumar, right? They were the first sons of Brahma. And Narad appeared later, but Narad is senior because of his pure devotion, by dint of his pure devotion. So Indra is saying, so your father Brahma is born directly from the navel of the Supreme Lord. In one day of Brahma, 14 Indras like me come and go, along with different sets of Manus and all the demigods. That one day equals 1,000 cycles of earthly ages. According to the scriptures, Brahma's night is of the same duration. 360 of such days and nights makes one of his years, and his life lasts 100 years. He is the creator of the planets and the rulers he assigns them. He is the world's chief protector, the dispenser of the fruits of karma, and at the onset of his night, the destroyer of the world. The Mahapurush, the thousand-headed form of the Lord, is always directly visible on Brahma's planet, personally accepting the countless oblations offered him, and thus always giving delight to his devotees. I could give you thousands of other reasons why Brahma is the real object of Sri Krishna's mercy. What more needs to be said? He is in fact Krishna himself. You know this, since it's proclaimed in both Shruti and Smriti. You must also be familiar, my Lord, with other aspects of Brahma's greatness and the greatness of the residents of his planet. Sri Pariksit said, hearing these words from Indra, Narad replied, well said, sir, well said, and hastily went to Brahma's planet. He heard from a distance the huge sound of the many great sacrifices performed unceasingly and with great devotion by the sages on Brahmalok. So it's a very busy place, very long and complex sacrifices going on there constantly. He then beheld among the sages the Supreme Lord in his Mahapurusha form, looking very much satisfied, decorated with crowns of matted locks. The Lord in his thousand-headed form, the personification of sacrifice, had appeared there with his consort, just to accept the offerings and delight his worshippers. So the Lord's not impersonal. That's a ridiculous idea. He has an impersonal aspect, so-called a Brahma Jyoti, but the Lord Mahapurusha. In the Purusha Sukta, the Rig Veda, at the very beginning of creation, the first sacrifice in the universe was performed. And the Lord then is consuming all the items offered, placing them into his 1,000 mouths with his 1,000 hands. After awarding the performers of the sacrifices the benedictions they desired, Lord Mahapurusha went to his sleeping quarters. As the goddess Lakshmi massaged his feet, he entered his pastime of sleep. At the Lord's request, Brahma then instructed his sons to continue the sacrifices while he went to his own royal court to deliberate on the management of the universe. As Brahma sat comfortably on his universal throne, absorbed in hearing and reciting the glories of his Lord, tears flowed from his 8 eyes. Surrounding Lord Brahma in attendance were the personified powers of universal rulership. Narad came close, offered respects to his father by falling to the ground like a stick, and then he spoke. Sri Narad said, "It is you who have truly received the mercy of Lord Hari. After all, you are the master of all masters of the living beings of the universe, the grandfather of all the worlds. You alone create, maintain, and devour the 14 worlds. You forever rule the universe, and you are known as the Self-Born. Present in your assembly are the Vedas, Puranas, and other scriptures, the revealers of truth who were born from your 4 mouths. So Lord Brahma is Adi Kavi, Adi Kavaye. In the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Dena Brahmarida Adi Kavaye. It's revealed within the heart of Brahma Adi Kavi, knowledge of Krishna consciousness. So he's the first authority of Vedic knowledge. Your world can be attained only by saintly persons who faultlessly perform their prescribed social duties, free from pride and other vices, for 100 lifetimes. Within the universe, there's no higher world than yours. Even Lord Narayan's Vaikuntha planet is found inside your world. On Brahmalok, Lord Narayan resides always in his manifest form as the lotus-naveled Mahapurush. He eats his shares of sacrifice and grants the sacrificial results. Although in the distant past you made many attempts and were unable to find him, after performing austerities, you finally saw him just for a moment in your heart. Therefore you are surely the dearmost devotee of Lord Krishna. Indeed, you are none other than Krishna himself, appearing in various bodies for your pastimes. Thus loudly praising Brahma, bowing before him with great devotion again and again, the sage Narad expansively sang Brahma's glories as he'd heard them from Indra and seen them with his own eyes. Merely by hearing what Narad said, Brahma grew disturbed. He anxiously covered his 8 ears and said over and over again, "I'm just a servant, I'm just a servant." With some effort, the four-headed Brahma checked the anger stirred within him by hearing what no one should hear and rebuked his son Narad. He said, "I'm not the Supreme Lord Krishna. On what authority and by what logic do you say this? Haven't I constantly taught you about this since you're a little boy?" His personal energy, Mahamaya, stands within his sight like a maidservant. It is she who deploys her material modes to create, maintain, and demolish this world. All of us are subject to her and bewildered, so you should not think me the recipient of even a trace of Krishna's mercy. By the power of Krishna's Maya, I'm always deluded by various conceits. I think myself the controller, grandfather, and spiritual master of the universe. Proud of my birth from Krishna's lotus navel, I think myself a great ascetic, his great worshipper. I'm overwhelmed by the countless duties of universal management. Worrying about the imminent destruction of my planet, I live in terror of the all-devouring end of time. All I want for myself is liberation. For this purpose of liberation, I engage others in worshipping the Lord and also worship him myself. Since he is the Lord of the universe, is there any place where he does not reside? He accepts sacrificial offerings from me only to promote the Vedic teachings and show special favour to the sacrifices themselves, which are dear to him because he is their original creator. Just consider this, my dear professor of logic. He loves only devotion. He shows his mercy only to his devotees, never to non-devotees. Forget about my having any devotion for him. I'd be happy if only it were true that I never offend him. I cannot expect him to tolerate my offences as he does Lord Shiva's. With benedictions obtained from me, the wicked Hiranyakashipu became the tormentor of all the worlds, dedicated to violence against Vaishnavas. After the Lord, in his form as Nrsingadev, destroyed Hiranyakashipu, I and my entourage stood fearful at a distance, trying to praise the Lord with skillful prayers, but he would not even honour us with a sidelong glance. Yet when Prahlad was inaugurated king, the Lord at once became pacified. Then I slowly approached him, and he angrily ordered me, "You should not give such benedictions to demons, O lotus-born." Nonetheless, I kept on giving benedictions to wicked demons like Ravan, whose tongue can even mention the sins Ravan has done. Remember the offences committed against the Lord by Indra and other demigods that I appointed. The excessive pride of those demigods constantly perverts their discrimination. And he gives many examples of this. How Indra and the Govardhan sacrifice, how Varuna kidnapped Nanda Maharaj, how Yamaraj allowed the wrongful death of the son of the Lord's teacher, how Kuvera was responsible for the wicked deeds of demons like Sankashuda and others. Then he mentions how he even stole the calves and cows at that pastime. Couldn't understand about Krishna, because Krishna with his friends was having lunch, and he was thinking he's like just a peasant country boy. He's holding food in his left hand. That's not very good behaviour, and sharing food with his friends, and he didn't know what to think, because he saw the cowboys go into the mouth of the demon Aghasura, and completely unafraid. And Krishna went in, and then he expanded himself, and he burst out from the body of the demon, killed the demon. So he was bewildered. He thought, wait a minute, how's that possible? So he decided to try to exert his power by creating an illusion for the Lord, but he was put into illusion rather. And then he apologized. And I thought to myself, I'm so arrogant, but now, in his pastime as a coward boy, the Lord has tricked me. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, in his commentary on the Bhagavatam, describing when Krishna was hearing the prayers offered by Lord Brahma, apologizing to him, bowing his crowns of his head in the Lord's lotus feet, and giving many prayers, which are in the Bhagavatam, but he was saying Krishna wasn't really paying attention. He was just, Krishna was thinking, who's this man? Why with his golden crown, and why is he bowing down in front of me? Krishna was thinking, I just want to go back with my friends and cows. Continue. So he was kind of indifferent like that. And then he says, in this universe, I see no object of Lord Vishnu's mercy equal to Mahadev Shiva. He is famous as the dear friend of the Lord. He is always intoxicated by the taste found at Sri Krishna's lotus feet. He has no interest in any of the normal goals of life, even up to rulership of the universe and the sense enjoyment such rulership provides. As if ridiculing materialists like me, who are simply addicted to sense enjoyment, he goes around naked, wearing garlands of dushtura, arka, and bones, and smeared all over with ashes. His matted locks scattered about, he moves around aimlessly like a madman, yet he's unable to conceal his glories. With joy he carries on his head the Ganga, born from the water that washed Krishna's lotus feet. When he dances, he destroys the universe. By Krishna's grace, Lord Shiva and his wife are able to award liberation to candidates like me who eagerly want it. Indeed, everyone who lives on Lord Shiva's planet is liberated. By his mercy, so many persons have become liberated souls, and even pure devotees of Krishna. To consider Lord Shiva different from Krishna is a serious spiritual deviation. The personality of Godhead tolerates offences against himself, but not against Lord Shiva. Then he's giving many examples of the glories of Lord Shiva. Sometimes to broadcast Lord Shiva's glories, Lord Krishna takes the role of his subordinate and worships him with intimate devotion. This is referring to Lord in his incarnation as Parashuram. And how Lord Shiva collected and drank the terrible poison from the churning of the ocean of milk, which then became his ornament by making his throat blue, Nilakant, blue-throated. So Lord is Hari, and he's called Hara. Hari, Hara, Hara, Lord Shiva. Then Narad bowed down to his spiritual master and father, Lord Brahma, and was eager to set off for Kailash. And then he's telling the glories of the abode of Lord Shiva in Kailash. And this dimension lies outside the seven coverings of the universe. So it's a spiritual planet, and the residents have Satchit Anand bodies. Yes. An imperishable realm, not a product of material nature. Eternal and full of happiness, that abode is absolutely real. It can be attained by the best of Lord Shiva's servants. There Lord Shiva, served by the most excellent regalia, reveals himself in his full splendour, surrounded by companions who share opulence and beauty equal to his. As his personal deity, he worships Lord Sankarshan, non-different from himself. So when Lord Shiva is chanting with his mala, Ram, 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 Ram means Sankarshan. What amazing wonders does Lord Shiva in this manifestation not display? You have the power to go there because you have pure devotion for him. Therefore go, take shelter of him and see the real mercy of Krishna. Parikshit said, My dear mother, after Narad received these instructions, he departed for Shivalok with joyful anticipation, chanting Shiva, Krishna. So then the third chapter, or the third part, is called Prapanchatit, beyond the material world. Maharaj Parikshit said, arriving in Shivalok from a distance, the sage Narada saw Lord Shiva, Sri Hara, who had just finished his worship of Lord Shankarshan, Sri Hari. Entranced in ecstatic love, Lord Shiva was dancing and loudly singing the glories of his Lord, while his associates played instrumental music and shouted, Jai, Jai. With great affection he praised his assistants like Nandishvara, as well as the goddess Uma, who was expertly clapping her hands. The sight of all this delighted Narad. Vibrating his veena and nodding his head to show respect, he called out several times, You are the greatest recipient of Krishna's mercy. And in a sweet voice he recounted to Lord Shiva everything just told him by their father, Lord Brahma. Narad came very close, hoping to touch the dust of the lotus feet of Lord Shiva, the best friend of the Vaishnavas. But as the sage came near, Lord Shiva, a flood of Krishna-conscious pleasure driving him wild, forcibly drew Narad closer and embraced him. Without hesitating, he asked Narad with respect, Dear son of Brahma, what are you saying? Lord Shiva then stopped his playful dancing and sat down. He sat on a straw mat in the Virasana posture, and a few of his gentle companions seated themselves around him. With devotion, Narad bowed down to Lord Shiva, the life and soul of Parvati, and chanted the 6-syllable Rudra mantra. He mentions Sanatana Goswami in his commentary. One who is observing a serious vow should sit on a kusha mat called a brishi, assuming the meditative hero's posture which expresses one's firm determination. This asana is defined in the Yoga Shastras. Narad then recited prayers glorifying Lord Shiva as the supreme controller of the universe, and elaborately proclaimed the fullness of the mercy bestowed upon Shiva by Lord Krishna. But Lord Rudra, the best of Vaishnavas, the initiator of devotional service to Vishnu, at once covered his ears and angrily replied, I am not the Lord of the universe, nor an object of Krishna's mercy. I'm just a poor soul always hankering for the favour of the servants of his servants. Upon hearing this, the sage Narad was shocked. Thinking he had acted offensively, he at once stopped praising Lord Shiva's non-difference from Krishna and began to speak in a soft voice. Sri Narad said, You certainly know the confidential, mysterious glories of Lord Vishnu and the Vaishnavas, and you expertly explain those glories. The best Vaishnavas therefore aspire for your mercy. Lord Krishna also has great regard for you and extensively spreads your glories. Has Krishna not worshipped you many times in his various incarnations and taken from you so many boons? Sri Parikshit said, Hearing this, Lord Shiva could no longer maintain his gravity. Ashamed, he sprang to his feet, covered Narad's mouth with both hands and said, Don't even mention that arrogance of mine. He then boldly told Narad with surprise in his voice, Just see the most incomprehensible power of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Oh, my Lord is so sober. He is such a deep and varied ocean of great qualities. Even though I've committed many kinds of offences against him, he still does not reject me. Seeing Lord Shiva completely absorbed in the transcendental taste of pure devotion for Krishna, Narad, pleased beyond limit, grasped Lord Shiva's feet, made him sit down again and spoke to appease him. Sri Narad said, You are so dear to Lord Achyuta. Is it possible you could ever offend him? Though people sometimes see what they think are your offences, he never sees them at all. Bana was a cause of trouble for saintly persons. Too proud of the strength of his arms, he used magic to arrest Aniruddha and fight against Krishna, the wielder of the disc. When you saw that Bana, your devotee, whom you had maintained like a son, was on the verge of being killed, to save his life you offered prayers to Sri Hari. At once Lord Krishna put aside his anger. Now pleased, the Lord gave Bana a form like his own and raised him to being one of your associates, a position rarely obtained even by demigods. When such enemies of the Vaishnavas as Gargya worshipped you by severe penances, the benedictions you gave them were not without loopholes. Although Chitraketu and others like him foolishly dared criticize you, you never became angry at them, because they were surrendered devotees of plenary portions of Lord Hari. Once, just to please Lord Krishna, you expressed the desire to become even greater than he. But then you very cleverly modified your request, asking him instead to make you his devotee. Therefore, the Supreme Lord granted you and the goddess Durga the authority to give liberation, the liberation for which Brahma and many others pray. Just see, though you have power and opulence unobtainable by Brahma and the other demigods, you disregard your material happiness and live like a holy madman. Always fixed in trance of devotion for Lord Vishnu, you appear totally insane. Who else but you would go and dance naked with his wife and attendants? Today I've finally seen your amazing uncontrollable eagerness to serve the Supreme Lord in pure devotion. No wonder Krishna always loves you the most. What more can I say? Krishna's love for you is never interrupted, and by your mercy many others have become dear to him. By Mother Parvati's mercy also, many other persons have become dear to Lord Krishna. She knows in detail the true nature of both Lord Krishna and you. Mother Parvati, Ambika, is Krishna's own sister who always receives his affection. That is why you care for her even though fully satisfied in yourself. And in the commentary, Sanatana Goswami says, Parvati is a non-different expansion of Yoga Maya, who appeared on earth from the womb of Yashoda Devi at the same time that Krishna was born from Devaki. Sri Krishna therefore regards Parvati as his sister. Finishing there. Jai. Okay. I need a book actually, if you know. Hari Hari Namah Krishnaya Namah Namah Hari Namah Namah Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Adana Mohan Giridhari Gopinatham Adana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra Shri Advaita Chandra Gadadhara Shiva Shari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Cheru Sanatan Bhakta Raguna Cheru Shri Jiva Gopal Bhata Dasha Raguna Jai Goshai Kori Sharana Vandam Ajajao Aite Vignanasha Abhishaturan Abhishaturan Jai Goshai Jar Kuitaruta Shivara Padre Numor Panjaga Tannera Charana Sevi Bhakta Shaneva Tannera Charana Sevi Bhakta Shaneva Janme Janme Moj Hey Abhilat Jai Goshai Jabe Bajje Koilaba Bajje Koilaba Shri Shri Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Karila Prakash Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Karila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhajya Vrindavan Anande Bolo Shri Guru Vaishnava Bande Majai Yamana Shri Guru Vaishnava Shri Guru Vaishnava Dhamma Koriya Shri Guru Vaishnava Avapinam Sankirtan Koinar Tamudas Sankirtan Vanja Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Bolo Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Rama Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jai Shri Hari Nama Sankirtan Ki Gaura Premanande Haribo.